Well, we've been chatting for a little bit, but we appreciate you being here. Just tell us what BEX is.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Isaac. I'm real happy and grateful to be here. I could talk about business all day. It doesn't mean that I know everything about it. I'm fascinated with it, and there's always so much to learn. This is not very normal for me. This is a little bit new. So I appreciate you guys and coming out today. Like Isaac said, my father was a third generation rancher, cowboy, redneck. That's what I am, fourth generation. He was an entrepreneur from the impetus, no college degree, you name it, he did it. And jack of all trades, master of none, although better than what is it? Better than one. But I'm here to just discuss, and that's the path I took, and I'll tell you in the end if it was worth it or not.
So tell us what year did you start BEX, and just how that idea came about, how old you were, and just how it all started.
Yeah, so I started BEX in 2009, but BEX is an ultra lightweight polarized sunglass company. We compete with Maui Jim, Ray-Ban, Oakley. We take a lot of pride in the fact that we are one of the last standing companies that aren't owned by the Italians. It's a huge industry. It's a very intimidating industry, to say the least. I don't think a lot about that. I don't think you can as an entrepreneur. We talked a little bit about it before when we were eating dinner. As an entrepreneur, you get to that mindset where, you're Cortez. You're landing on shore, and instead of anchor the boats, you burn them. You're like, we're not going back. We're going 100%, 100 miles an hour. We're doing this, and so that's the position we took on it. I was 24 years old. Had recently retired from being a professional rodeo cowboy. Didn't know what was next. I had worked construction, but I had seen my father from the time I could walk, just as an entrepreneur. Had a firsthand look at what that all of the myriad of different stages of that. I had seen him from. He was one of the. I'm very proud of my father, and he passed away in 2011. So you'll hear me allude to a lot of the things that he did, not because we haven't taken our own path. We absolutely have. That's been really important to me on a personal level, to be able to do it as much on our own as we could, so that we didn't skip any of those really imperative stages that taught you the hard lessons that you could really learn from. But he was one of the top 100 landowners in the United States. He owned a construction business. Him and my mom started in 1979 in Las Vegas. He was a cowboy, through it all. He was just an old cowboy, and I loved it. And so I watched everything. I watched the whole process fold out from start to finish, every aspect of it, from him coming home once a quarter with some type of legal action being taken against him, and how that would play out, and buying a $110,000 ranch in New Mexico when we lived in Las Vegas, to you name it. I mean, I had seen the whole process. Mm-hmm. So it was cool. So by the time BEX came around, the one thing I learned earlier on, I learned a lot from working construction. Underground utility was the family business. Spent a lot of time in the ditch from the time I was about 15 till I was about 22, 3, mostly the summers, and when we had a little time off school, because we were rodeoing and doing things like that, playing sports. But the one thing I learned more than anything is that I didn't want to be in the ditch forever. That was the one thing I learned. And so when it came time to take all of that knowledge and use it, I picked a consumer product. And I've always loved consumer product. I've been fascinated with the Nikes of the world and the Oakleys and how things are made. and so I thought maybe we would take a run at it, and yeah,
So
here we are.
I guarantee you that nobody in this room has ever thought, yeah, I might create a new sunglass brand, you know?
Don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's occupied by some of the big names that you mentioned before, but why did you decide to go with sunglasses?
Yeah. So in professional rodeo, first of all, I thought there was opportunity for the little guy, and maybe this will be to my detriment one day. But when I set out on this journey, it wasn't to make $1 billion. It was to put enough food on the table for my family, and still today it is. I keep it that simple. Now I'm fanatical about the experience and the user experience and the product and how we do business. But at the end of the day, that's all that really matters to me is so that I can feed my family and do a good job. And so I felt like that there was enough opportunity to be able to accomplish that. And in approaching it that way, again, I'm a redneck. So it slowed it down enough to say, okay, well, if we do that and we do a good enough job at it, then the other things will just come naturally. We're a good business. We have a great product. We're honest in all of our dealings. We don't have to. My memory is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. We went to school together. You remember me? Not much has changed. Yeah, my memory is not good. I wasn't a great scholar, and so I've long had this personal. I don't lie, and the reason is very simple. Is because if I start lying, no matter how hard the news is to deliver to someone, I will never be able to remember whether I told the truth or not. So it's pretty simple, right? Yeah.
Just be honest.
Just that was what it was for me, is to be able to have a product and be honest about it and just do things right. And even when we make mistakes, I'll fess up. Hey, you owe me kind of a hard discussion, and I'm going to take it because we made a mistake. It's on us. So, let's try and get to the root of it and see what we can do to rectify it.
So you're in the professional rodeo world, and you see that there's room for the little guy, and then you start building sunglasses and selling them. How does that happen? I mean, if I just start selling something off a tailgate, it doesn't grow into a $1 million brand. And so tell us more about like how you made that happen.
We did sell them off the tailgate.
Cool.
Real quick before I forget about that.
I didn't know that.
We did that. And again, for me, it was a really humbling, embarrassing, all of the different emotions you can think of, because I'd never had my father. I never was really in that position. He was successful, and he tried to give us the same type of childhood that anybody would, with all the different facets of making something from nothing. But at the same time, to go sit in the back of a truck and sell product that we had purchased and ordered without really a plan in action, I still had to get rid of it because there was no way to get to that next level. Because again, he was the type of guy that, hey, Jason, you want new shoes? Yeah, I could go buy you several new shoes, but why don't you sell the ones you have or use them or get holes in them before we buy new ones? So that was my thought of that. So we took off and designed. I was designing product in those days, and in that industry, the Maui gyms and the Ray-Bans and everything that you see today were really prevalent. And I remember specifically a moment, I was in Sheridan, Wyoming, and I was with some friends, and they had bought a brand new pair of Ray-Bans, and $250 or something. And they go out that night to the saloon or whatever, and he breaks them. Next day, we're pulling out of town, we're all rodeoing together, and he's like, hey, I need you to stop at this store again, a sporting goods store. I need to grab another pair of Ray-Bans. My buddy flicked them off my hat last night and smashed them. I'm thinking, man, $500. If I could create a cool enough product, that'd be my $500. And so that's kind of where the sunglasses itself started to, that path took hold. Yeah.
So when you first started, there's a lot of different moving parts. I mean, manufacturing, you've got to get everything's set up as an entity. Did you start with one? Did you start with two different, models? Or just tell us the story of how you developed and where it is today.
So we had the same problem back then, I would say we have today, is I started with like 10 different models, right? Didn't really have, we skipped a lot of those normal stages, but it wasn't a normal situation. I didn't have any background, no business school experience. Everything was more or less learned the hard way. My father, I remember telling him one day, I said, I want to start the sunglass company. And he was still alive at the time, and he said, okay, why? And I said, well, I just think that there's some opportunity here. And he puts his arm on my shoulder. I'll never forget it. And he says, well, I don't know anything about that, and I don't know anybody who knows anything about it, so good luck. I just hope you stick with it, after 6 months. And that was the end of it. And so when I ordered this product, there was really no guidance. We had talked about it a little bit in the other room, and so I designed up like 10 different frames, and by the time they got here, again, bought them. 7 of them were no good. Threw those in the trash. That was really hard. 3 of them were pretty good, I thought. 1 of them sold enough for us to get to that next level. And still to this day, the way that I look at it, we design everything's from the ground up. We have industrial designers that are on our staff that are some of the best in the world, and we'll design 20 to get to 2 that are really good, that are gonna make it the distance, and that's just part of it. So
you mentioned you had to throw 7 of these new models away. You're just starting. But would you say that's a failure in some sort or another?
Yeah, but you'll get used to that. You'll get used to a ton of failure, lots and lots and lots, and it's never ending. And in a lot of ways, it starts to become your friend. The key is to not get down about it, just to realize that everybody goes through that. And that's one of the things, and I don't know if we'll get a chance to touch on it or not, but I did something I wanted to discuss is that, I read a lot of audiobooks. I like the hard copy and the audiobooks, and everybody makes it seem like they got it all figured out and that failure is part of it sometimes. I disagree with that. I think it's a big part of a lot, like 90-10, a lot of failure, a little bit of success, just enough. It's like that great golf shot, right, to get you to the next one. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about, where BEX is going. What's next for BEX?
So I try and be really honest with myself in everything that I do and about where we're going. And we still have a lot of work to be done where we're at. So what that means is we make a really good product. And I used to tell people in the early days when it wasn't so good, but it was as good as I knew how to make it. And I was leaving no stone unturned. I was staying up. I almost can't talk too much about this phase because I'll probably get a little bit emotional, and that's never what you want to see. But there was a time mentally that it was dangerous. It was dark. It was that excruciating, which you wouldn't think that my path would be that way if you knew my family, but it was. And I was hoping my wife could join us tonight because she would be a lot better resource in this area. But there was about 2 years where I was so fanatical about getting to that next level, but we couldn't afford those designers that had worked for Oakley, that truly knew what they were doing. And I remember at the time, there was a specific moment right when my father passed where I had a Mac computer. My wife and I, we got married real young. We didn't have a lot of money. And again, I wanted to do it on my own. We wanted to do it together. There was a sense of accomplishment that came with that. And so I had this desktop Mac. It was about the only nice thing that we had. We were living off Rainbow and Trop in Vegas in an apartment, just her and I. We just had a newborn baby when we started BEX. And we had this Mac computer was like the only nice thing that we had, and it wasn't a laptop. So every day I was able to borrow an office in my family's construction company, and it was like the walk of shame. I would take this computer under my arm, I would walk it in every day, I would plug it in, and I would do my work. I was on this mission to start BEX and to make it work. And I know it was embarrassing, man. I can't imagine what everybody was saying. Let's look at this loser. What does he think he's doing, And that was just part of it. Like, that was just one of those stages where you just got to take it on the chin. It's just, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to be said. And it was that tenacity to make such a great product. We are still there in a sense, and I think we'll always be there. That's what's next for us is to really feel like we're doing a good enough job for our customer. And it sounds so cliche, but I mean it. We work for our customers. We talk about it at BEX all the time. There's 18 of us. And every meeting, hey guys, let's not forget who we work for. We work for the customer. Don't ever forget that. And remember that in every correspondence you have with them, every conversation, they are our boss. I'm not your boss, they are. Because as soon as we stop doing a great job for them, we stop getting paid. Like every 2 weeks, our check stops coming. Don't ever lose sight of that. And so what's next for BEX is we have a few markets that we want to attack, but we got a lot more work to do in this one to fulfill on that initial obligation to be the best product we can be and offer maximum value to the customer, our customer. And we know who that customer is. Yeah.
So if you could go back and give your best advice to 24-year-old Jason starting BEX, what would it be?
I wouldn't change a lot, but I would say to try and find a way to keep the passion, keep the fanaticism with going as hard as you can and just trying to be the best, but slow down at the same time. I think that passion is a great thing. I think it's the ingredient that you have to have, but at the same time, I think that it can get you in a lot of trouble if you're not careful. And you have to. I'm not a big self-love guy. I know that's a thing today. And if my father was alive, he'd be like, "What are you talking about? Self-love? What does that mean? Just go out and I asked you to just stack hay. What are you talking about? But I think that it's important to pace yourself. Practice moderation. Check in, find out what's going on. And I think there's times where if you slow down, you can take that one step back and get 2 or 3 steps forward. And I'm still trying to find that balance. But the passion, I think, is a key ingredient to help you get through those really hard times that undoubtedly, I believe, will come. They are going to come. If you start entrepreneurship, no matter at what level or what your end goal is, you're going to have some really difficult times. And that passion can help you punch through that, to help you keep going when you're having to visit the mailbox to make payroll. And we've been there. I've been there for like a year, 52 weeks in a row. I've been there, and it's a hard one, but you gotta want it bad enough to say, okay, I'm gonna stick with this. I'm not giving in. This is not gonna get the best of me. So
Yeah. So you're talking about passion for your startup, passion for your brand. Does that bleed into the mindset that you have to get through these? Because starting a company and building a brand like you did, or a lot of other people in here want to do, it's not easy. And there's a lot of times when a lot of us want to give up.
yeah.
How do you not give up? How do you get through those times when you're just like, man, I don't know how we're going to get through this. I don't know how we're going to build the BEX brand. How do you do that?
Day by day, there's no manual. There is no manual to be an entrepreneur because every situation is different, right? You have more money going out than you have coming in, and you've promised some of your suppliers, that if they give you a little bit more time, but then your customers aren't. Every situation is unique, and so you never really know what to expect. I think you stay committed. You absolutely have to stay committed and determined that that's the right thing for you. And one of the things is, a lot of times people ask me that are smarter than me, they're more educated than me, that their station in life is well above mine. And they say, well, what is it, man? Is it a great education? Is it going to business school, or is it the right investor, or is it the right team? Undoubtedly, those are all really important pieces to the puzzle. Absolutely. But the one thing that you have to have if you are going to start that journey or this journey or whatever you want to call it, you got to have guts, man. You got to have guts. And if it was a room full of men, it would probably be using a different term. But you have to have guts. You have to have what it takes. And Elon Musk said it best. Somebody asked him at a business school, "Hey, what's it like to be an entrepreneur?" He goes, "It's like eating glass and staring into the abyss." And it is. It really is. There's times there's not really I don't even know what you would call the emotion that you're feeling at the time.
Strategy with starting, any business and corporation, anything that's growing, strategy has to be behind everything. Mentoring. Who did you go to for, mentors, and how did you get advice, and how would you suggest, these entrepreneurs do that?
It's a great question. Again, every business book will talk about, like, the first chapter 1 is always go find a mentor, right? Easier said than done, especially a really good one. Somebody that's going to part with the things that they have taken their entire life to gather. That knowledge, they don't want to part with that. Very simple. So how do you earn that respect? Mm-hmm. I was fortunate that I had a front row seat to one of the greatest entrepreneurs that I had ever known. And my father wasn't the type to always just have a real cordial conversation with you. So I got to see the really raw version of what it's like to go from 0 to 60, because when he was 24, he was working for the county in Las Vegas, sleeping under a water truck at lunchtime. It was 120 degrees out, and the only shade he could find, there was a little bit of water dripping down. He was taking a nap. He stayed out late, didn't want no lunch. He was just exhausted. And that water's dripping on him, cooling him off, and some of his buddies tickled him, and he got up and he hit his head on the bottom of the water truck, and he said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore." And he started his journey. Started destitute. He rode bulls and bucking horses in the sport of rodeo, which you can buy that gear back then, probably $150. A good rope horse probably cost 10 grand. So he rode rough stock. That's all he could afford. So that was the start of his journey. And what I like about The Magnificent Seven, it's an old Western movie, and they had a remake, and there's a Native American that pulls up, and they're trying to put together a team. And it's kind of like our team at BEX. And our team is made up of not the typical individuals that you think they're made up of. And they said, "What are you doing here? We're trying to put together a team." He's like, "I want in." And they're like, "You don't really fit the team." And they said, "Well, why? We're going against some of your people." He said, "My mom told me when I was a boy that my path is different." And that always stuck with me. And I think that that's a really important thing to remember too, is that everybody's path is just a little bit different. Yeah.
I like that. What other advice would you give to this group? Or whatever you want to tell about the BEX story?
Another thing that I think is really, really, really often overlooked in entrepreneurship is how imperative and how important it is to have a great partner. My wife is the VP of BEX Sunglasses. She wanted to join us tonight. She's out in Parowan. We have four little ones. Our youngest is 4.5 months. And she's in there, and the reason why she's a VP, she didn't go to business school, but she's the only one that knows the things that I know because we've done it together. And I think that that's a really, you don't hear the business books talk about that, but it is everything. Make no mistake about it, because not only passion that gets you through those nights, it's that teammate, man. It's that person that's right there in it with you, shoulder to shoulder, toe to toe, and they know it. So Haley's the vice president at BEX. We've had a lot of really smart business people that deserve the position, but she has it. She'll always have it. If something were to happen to me tomorrow, the company doesn't skip a beat. She would do a better job than me in a lot of areas. The families that have contributed and shown me that they're all in based on their efforts every single day, they still have food on the table, and that's important for me. And so, I think that's They don't talk about that, but it is really, really big, not to ever be discounted. I think it's really, really an important one.
What, BEX is, if these people don't know BEX, they're going to know BEX, right? Because now they're going to look at your product in a few minutes, and they're going to have a chance to win, and something, and it's really a remarkable brand that you built. But you mentioned earlier that it's the product that you really stand behind, and you mentioned to me that a while back when we were sitting in your office, you mentioned to me if a pair of sunglasses comes back to you with a defect or something, you want to have that come to your office, to your desk, and you want to look at it.
100%.
Why can't you just toss it aside and move on?
I think the easy answer is I'm not wired that way. The deeper answer is I feel like we owe more to the customer. Again, we've been very upfront and honest in everything, and we're making a really good product these days. It hasn't always been that way, but it wasn't intended to cut any corners. That was never. But the reality of it is back then we're asking $89, $90 for a pair of glasses. Today we're asking $190 for some of our products. That's a lot of money. I want to make sure that we're doing our part, and if there is an issue, we're up front. We'll have a meeting. Hey, this is what's going on. This is the trend that we're seeing. We're not spinning this. We're being honest with them, and this is what's going on, 100%. And we're being honest with the fact that we missed something somewhere. That's on us. And you trusted us with your hard-earned money, and we failed you. But thank you. We're careful to say it will never happen again, because there's a lot of different variables that you're trying to manage when you're doing those things. But we will darn sure learn from it, take it to heart, discuss it, get to the root of the problem, and rectify it to the best of the situation, to the best of our ability.
Does that philosophy kind of create loyalty customers?
I think you'd have to ask them.
Yeah.
I hope so. I believe it does. I believe they appreciate the focus in which we have on that. But at the end of the day, the customer's always right, and they're going to have an opinion on that, and it's whatever their opinion is from their experience. And if we let them down, or if we didn't do a good job, they have every right to be disappointed. 100%. I would too. I'm a customer too. So.
I like that. Well, appreciate all that you've said to us so far. We're not done yet. I want to open it up to our audience to be able to ask some questions, and I want to leave some good time, because I know that you'll have some good answers, and I could ask questions all day. But the bottom line is BEX was created off that idea that you had of just coming in as the little man and building that brand in the rodeo market. And BEX has done a tremendous job. You'll notice now when you walk around town that you'll see BEX hats on people all over the place. Way more than you'd ever think exist. Walmart last night, 2 BEX hats. So this community, loves BEX. And I think that now even more this community is going to love BEX. But I want to open it up to them and let them ask you questions. You all have a number, right? Except for the cohort, you guys can't get another bag. I'm sorry. So if you got a number and it gets called, doesn't mean anything. Okay, but we're gonna leave a little bit of time at the end. We'll do a drawing, and then we'll do some giveaways. All right?
Sounds good.
So you guys go ahead, ask away.
I have a question. You kind of answered it a little bit, but you mentioned you know your customer. I'm just curious, who exactly is your customer, and how did you go about discovering who they are, really?
Yeah. That is still a work in process. I don't want to discount I can never discount enough the need for great data, and we still don't utilize it to the best of our ability, but that's a big one. That's a big one in building that customer archetype. The way that I would go out and talk to them. I still do. If I'm at a store that carries BEX sunglasses, I'll walk up and I will ask questions, and the people that are with me, they're like, dude, come on, This is just weird. But I want to know. I want to know why are you walking up to the display? Did you know BEX was here before you got here? Is this why you drove to the store? I want to try and find out as much as I can from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And but our customer is 14 to 34 years old, 65% male. They're a blue-collar American that both recognizes and appreciates quality and is willing to pay for it. That's our customer. So the way we found that was, I would say I'm an old-fashioned entrepreneur, so a lot of my tactics are very old school. Just walking up and talking to them, figuring it out. Yeah. I hope that answers your question a little bit, Scott. Thank you.
I have a question of, how did you go from being a much more smaller company that was kind of squeaking away by to being much more well-known and having a good foothold in such a dominated space?
This is going to sound really, I don't know, maybe vulnerable would be the answer, but we've been blessed. Step one, this is Heavenly Father at work in all of His glory, honestly. And I'm not one to be that way, but that's the truth. I remember we started BEX in 2009, and that's when we filed for the trademarks, the business license, all the things that, again, we had to kind of learn on our own. And the company, coincidentally, was supposed to be named something else. Got into a trademark dispute, company out of California. I'm like, I can't afford to do that. I can't even afford gas for my car. I know I don't want to dispute you. Please tell your lawyer to never write me an email again. I will never be able to pay for it, right? Yeah. But I remember from 2009 to 2012, we had bought about 1,300 pairs of sunglasses, and they were pretty good. They really were. We were finally getting them pretty good, but they weren't ready. So we went and giving those glasses away in the early days to build the brand was like, you had to pry them out of my hands. Like, it was so hard. From 2012, we started retail distribution. We started going to shows, started pounding the pavement, going into some stores, just cold calling things. From 2010 to 2015, even still sometimes today, I would hit my knees at night and I would say, Heavenly Father, if you will somehow put the thought into our customers that they know how hard we are trying to give them what they deserve, I promise I will fulfill on my end of the deal, which is giving them that. It won't happen today, it probably won't happen tomorrow, but I will never stop reaching to get to the level to where they will be grateful that they were patient with us. Help them be patient with us. And that was my mantra, man. Like I lived, like it was everything. And so there's a lot of credit to be there still to this day. Second is stay really lean. Stay as lean as you possibly can. And it is brutal, but there's a lot of truth to that. Not only debt's a hard thing. Debt can eat you up. I think there's times where you have to have it. The road to wealth is paved with borrowed money. There's a reason why people say that. But don't take it when you don't absolutely have to have it. Because usually in a company, that first several years is a lot of trial and error, is a lot of a school of hard knocks. And in being very green, you might utilize that cash to learn those lessons. And then by the time you really got it figured out, you're kind of hitting that runway. All you need is a little more money. You might have just absolutely played all of those opportunities out. And so you're sitting there and you're like, but I got it now. We figured it out, man. We went through the samples. We dialed it in. We're there. We just need a little bit more. Well, a lot of those companies, or a lot of those venture capital, or a lot of those banks, they loan you money to make money, and sometimes if it's not there on your financials, it's not there. And so just to stay lean. There's also a lot that comes with. There's a lot of things that you learn by having to stay lean. You don't know what you're capable of until you have to be creative about how you can pay your employees or about how you can make a product without cutting corners, but at the same time, you have to make it all work. You will, and I think that's where, and again, I get so upset at myself for being very vulnerable with you, and I'm sorry about that. But I think that's what led to that 2 years, is I was constantly trying to beat the Oakleys. Luxottica did 21 billion last year in revenue, and I want to be them. I want our product quality to be that good. I want our R&D to be that good. I want our sales presentation. I want our everything to be that good, and we have $150 in the bank, right? It's that pressure that you put on yourself to, but there's some good that comes with that. That's how diamonds are made. And so there's a book called The Power of Broke by Damon John, big Shark Tank guy. He started FUBU. It's a great book because it basically, he does a really good job of explaining what I'm talking about, is that when you're broke and you don't have, it's not even an option to go get that money, you will find some really cool ways to do things and still get the job done better, if not every bit as good. So, but it's not the first thing you want to think, because I think we all kind of want the path of least resistance. Even if we don't think we do, we're still human. And humans by nature are imperfect, right? So, yeah.
Just a question from an average consumer. I'm familiar with Oakley. I actually have some humps and some blenders. I know those are maybe tier 2 versus that. What makes your glasses superior? Or what quality things are the most important to you that, hey, BEX is going to have these things because I think it makes a superior product?
That's a loaded question. A tough one, but a good one. And I hope I can answer it in a way that will suffice. And there's a lot of great eyewear factories out there. And they're different levels, right? They started with a very concerted effort or concerted focus blenders you mentioned. They did a really good job. They were acquired by Safilo 2-3 years ago. And they had a very small target and they nailed it. They all make great product. BEX makes great product. The technical jargon, there's an A/B value rating scale that these brands use. We don't ever talk a lot about our technology. Not enough. Again, maybe that's where the redneck comes. I mean, let's just go sell it. Let's not get everybody bogged down in all the details. I feel like that's what everybody else does. Let's just go show up to them, walk them through it. If they like it, let's let them make that decision. Let's not sell too hard. But this AB value, this AB rating, Maui Jim is the best in clarity, optical clarity. They are the best at 52. Oakley is one of the worst at 33, and they're able to get away with it because they're Oakley, and Oakley is amazing. If not for Jim Gennard at Oakley and what he was able to accomplish before he sold the company, we wouldn't be what we are. I study him. A lot of the things that he did, I studied that meticulously to learn that there's a lot of great stuff there, but they're Oakley. They're Oakley. Their margins are unbelievable, and they do a great job. They do a great job with their story. They are very, very, very tightly in touch with their customer, and they make a great product. Their innovation is off the charts. You will never hear me say anything bad about Oakley or anybody else that's doing a really, really good job. And I'm thankful for that because it pushes us to do a better job. If we want that customer, we better work for it. And we better do our end of the deal. BEX is at 51. Maui Jim's at 52. BEX is at 51. Oakley's at 33. Blenders is probably in the 20s. They're such a different class than we are. Doesn't mean they haven't been successful. They sold to Safilo for $22 million. It's a very successful company. I remember being at some of the shows with or meeting the Chase, the owner, the founder, and trying to learn from what he did and what he accomplished. It's been a great story. But their goals were a little bit different. We've always been really, if there's a material out there that's the best, even if I have to pay more money for it, I want it. I want it because then I can lay down at night. I can lay my pillow down at night. It's very simple for me. Hey, have we done everything we can to do a good job for our customer? Okay, I can go to sleep now. I'm good. I feel good with that. But if there's something out there that we're not doing, why? Why are we not doing it? And how? And so in the earliest days of BEX, we use a nylon polarized lens. We call it NIPO. Nylon polarized is expensive, especially when you're starting out. It's really an expensive material. But we have a lot of rimless styles because we're lightweight. And whenever you go to do the drill mounts and the splice, you know, and the edging and stuff like that for our rimless mounts on our glasses, the polycarbonate, which is a great material, the optical clarity is great. It will start to crack. It'll start to splice. It's just not as durable long term. And so even back then when we couldn't afford it, hey, here's nylon. It's going to be way better but it's this much more. It was a no-brainer. That's what we want. I don't want to be laying in bed and have somebody call. And back when we had 1 or 2 customers, I still feel the same about the ones that we have today, which could be tens of thousands, 20s of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I still feel the same about that today. Is I don't want somebody sitting there, why is this cracking? If we could have prevented it with just going all in. So, but there's a lot of them out there that do a really, really, really good job. You know, yeah.
How essential or important do you think, having been a professional in the rodeo industry, was in helping sell to the rodeo industry?
I do think it was very important. A lot of the contacts I had in the early days were from peers of mine and just, you know, endorsements that I had along the way, Wrangler or some of these that could put me in touch with different sales reps. But still, even with that, it was you just gotta, you know, people want value added, especially today's day and age. There's our time is so limited. And so what are you doing to add value to that customer? So even though we had those contacts, we might get the number or the name of a buyer. If you didn't have your stuff together, they felt it and they knew it, and they weren't, you know, what is it? P.T. Barnum said is, a fool and his money are easily parted. Them buyers, they're really scrupulous with how they spend those open to buy type dollars that they're given, because everything that they bring in, you know, and obviously the landscape of business has shifted a lot with online, right? But still, there's those retail. Good retail is still a great business today. Brick and mortar is still a great business, and the ones that are really good merchandisers, they do a great job. And those buyers, you know, they want their superior to promote them, no different than we all want that. And so whatever they bring in is under a microscope. It needs to succeed and it needs to perform. And so they're really, really shrewd in what they bring in. But it was definitely helpful. Definitely helpful, yeah. But it wasn't everything.
Could you talk a little bit about your supply chain? I assume you guys aren't manufacturing in-house, maybe contract manufacturing or importing from Southeast Asia. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know if you're getting it manufactured overseas, you probably have to go over there on business trips often. And with the pandemic, that might have been a challenge. I just wanted to get your supply chain a bit.
It's a great question. Excuse me. So we do manufacture one style here. It was actually in Leeds. So we manufactured it in Las Vegas, and then we moved from Las Vegas. We moved our office from Las Vegas to a little town where I'm from called Logandale. It's Moapa Valley. And still to this day, half of our team's there, and then the creative side is in Las Vegas. And I always like to say the heavy lifters are the ones in Logandale. They're the rednecks like me. They're the ones that just will do what it takes, right? So we do some stuff here that fits our customer, right? It's no frills. It's a great lens. It's all of the same things. It's the same, the way that we approach it. We actually started it. The reason why we started manufacturing in Las Vegas before we moved out to Logandale was we had an SOP that instructed every single BEX team member to assemble 60 pairs of BEX sunglasses every week. And the reason why is that was how they would really come to know and believe in our product. If they're the ones putting them together, if they're the ones assembling, they know if they're junk or not. And that way when they got on the phone, if they're trying to sell it to somebody, or if a customer calls and says, these are junk, they would be like, you know what, I'm sorry you had a bad experience, but they're not junk. And I've been putting 60 of these things together. I'm gonna tell you right now, they're good. And it's driving me nuts, but they are really good. And so that was the reason why we started doing it, and it just kind of morphed into this to this. I love the idea of doing one here. It's really, really cool. We do a lot of overseas stuff. That was a question. That was a thing we had talked about in the room over there. The way that had originated is I flew to China on a one-way ticket. I took my mom. First time I went to China, we had a one-way ticket. I took my mother with me. It was 2 weeks after my father passed, and I knew the only way to really give this thing a go. Again, we got to the shores, and I'm like burning the boats. I'm giving this thing. Dad would want me to really give it my all, so that's what we're doing. I took her to get her mind off what was going on, the grief. China probably wasn't the best place to take her in retrospect, but we went out there and we just started knocking doors, pounding the pavement. Every time I would go into a factory and I would learn, I was also looking at the machinery and the equipment. I was keeping notes, like, oh, that's what this one's called. And then over the next, 7, 8 years, I would look on eBay, I'd look on Craigslist, I would look anywhere I could. I would look the classifieds, and if I came across one of these machine names, I'm like, I gotta have it. It might be 1970 machine. So little by little, our manufacturing facility was the island of misfit toys that I had taken my notebook, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy that, I'm gonna buy that, I'm gonna buy that. And so we started manufacturing here, but it was really good. First of all, if it's a physical product, it all depends. I love the idea of U.S. manufacturing. Depending on the product or what you're trying to accomplish, more times than not, I will be very transparent and honest, it's a terrible business move. It's just that simple. So, our supply chain is, again, consumer products are really a tough one. That's the hardest thing about this type of business is you either have too much, which is cash. To me, it's bundles of cash. Our team might see boxes, I see cash sitting on a shelf, or you don't have enough to capitalize on an opportunity. A big chain, it could be Best Buy. Your product is in the tech industry. They're like, hey, we've got your name, or we've seen the 733 emails you've sent us. Finally, we're going to see what you're all about. When can you ship, and how many of these do you have? We want to try one. And you're like, oh, man, we're almost there. They're like, oh, sorry. That window closes, right? And you might not get another opportunity at that. So that's kind of always the challenge in consumer product is supply chain. And we have a couple really good ladies in the office that are awesome. And they're both mothers. There's like a huge untapped resource in mothers that have kids at home that just want to get out, that have a lot of talent and have a lot to offer, and we seek those out. We're in Moapa Valley, right? It's a small place, but there's a lot of, and they're both awesome. One of them actually graduated from SEU, an accounting degree, and she's our supply chain manager, and she's amazing. And she looks at those algorithms, and again, it's a tough one. You always either have way too much or you never have enough. And I don't know that anybody has that as a perfect science, especially when the pandemic comes around. It really exploits those deficiencies that you might have as a company. But nobody, not myself or anybody else, I believe, has that down to a science.
I think we've got time for one more question. Two more. Two more questions. Yours, and then go ahead. No, go.
You talked a little bit about where you want BEX to be. What do you think you're not doing well enough, or what do you think you still need to do? What do you need to do better to get there?
Great question. It's probably not an easy answer. It's probably not something that can be. I know I do have a laundry list of specific things that we need to be doing better. But the main one is we have to start to believe, me, and this is more of a personal, we have to start to believe in ourselves. I'm so afraid to become proud. I think pride is a really dangerous thing. And so more times than not, I'm probably a little too reserved. I need to start to trust the process a little bit. Again, that's a personal thing. Hey, at what point is the product as good or better than any of the Oakleys that you just got to go out and tell the world, hey, we're better, Another one is just putting ourselves out there. I like to know that everything's buttoned up, And I don't know that that's always an option, especially in the early days, right? If you have a great, first of all, if you have a great idea, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell your friends. Don't tell your, tell your wife maybe, right? But don't tell anybody. Just go do it first, or at least do a lot of the IP and stuff like that, and then go tell somebody if you want. But even at that rate, I think the world is full of people that will tell you until they're blue in the face, and you're like, okay, well, where is it? Just go do it. Just go put your shoulder to the wheel and just go do it. Sometimes we probably are our own worst enemy at BEX in terms of thinking broader and just opening those floodgates and being like, it's ready. The field is ready. It's time. It's time to go. And so maybe a little bit more confidence in our ability to assess the situation and know that we've set the table really well. Now it's just time to go. So that, and we can always do, training is a big one. Training is a big one, right? When you think you have all of your training procedural stuff in place, you'll learn that you don't. And it's a huge one. I'm a big fan of the Patriots when Tom Brady was around. I think Bill Belichick did a magnificent job of realizing that he had Tom Brady. He had the guy. And what he needed around him was people that were willing to put the work in and just put the effort out. They might have graduated from Brown University, which is not a prominent football school, but he took ordinary people, and because of their attitude and their effort, and those are the things that I look for when I hire. I don't ask about college degrees ever. I don't have one. I'm never going to be a hypocrite. That's just not. What's your attitude? What's your effort? What are you willing to do? Why are you here? What do you stand to gain from this? What are you trying to accomplish? I want to see the medal before we have a chance to even get down into those dirty parts, because it's going to happen. But Bill Belichick was able to take ordinary people and do extraordinary things, and I think training was a big one. I think by really having that system in place is huge. Very underestimated at times, especially for a new entrepreneur or a small company. That's how the big corporations operate. They always have from the impetus, is they have the standard operational procedure in place. That's how they can start a company in Cedar this week and have a corporate office in Zurich next week, because they're all learning from the same manual. But as an entrepreneur, you don't know that. You're just going. You're going. You're like, I got to go, like right now. And so sometimes your product is not always developed to where you think it should be. And a lot of books will talk about that. They'll say, hey, if you wait till the product is too good, you've waited too long. So I think there's a balance there, but sometimes we just need to trust ourselves a little bit more. So.
What was the first sigh of relief you had when you had your product in hand and you were presenting it to salespeople? What was the first moment that you had a break and you felt like, I can make this work, like I've got this?
Yeah. On the one hand, it still has never happened. On the one hand, we're a meritocracy at BEX, and I talk about that all the time. And again, maybe it's my fear of pride or my realization that all good things come to an end eventually. Jeff Bezos talks about that at Amazon, that eventually somebody will overtake them. Sears used to be the Amazon. The Robux catalog was Amazon as we know it today. And so we are a meritocracy. We talk about it at BEX all the time. Like, yesterday's gone. Today is here. It's in front of us. Tomorrow hadn't even happened yet. What are we doing today to ensure that we're going to be here tomorrow? And it's not just lip service. Like, mentally, I never, ever, ever just take a deep breath, because I know that there's a lot of entrepreneurs like you that are out there that are hungry, that are determined, that really want to knock BEX off the perch. And so we are constantly always talk about our team. Are we disrupting ourselves enough? I don't want to know that somebody's coming in with a better material that we've never heard. Did we find that? But in order to think like that, because of everything that's going on, you have to have a concerted, razor-sharp focus on every day, making it a big part of the puzzle. Is to say, did we take enough time to do a self-audit? Are we finding our own flaws before someone else exposes those? That's a big one. But the day where I finally was like, this is cool, is when I didn't have to wait by the mailbox to make sure all of our people were being paid. 2018, November 2018, we had $418 in our checking account. Today, we don't worry about cash. And it's crazy how that disparity happens. We were trying to build team. I'm a young guy that's seeing what Oakley and these guys are doing and trying to build a creative team to be able to scale from 0 to 60. And we had the team in place and it was amazing. And we had our sales team and we had our training. We had everything there. It was all there. But where was the money for inventory? You got to be able to capitalize on those sales to make that machine work. And that was a lesson learned the hard way. Had to lay off. I've always hired. I've always fired. I had to let it go at 8 people. Broke my heart. Hard. Yeah. So the day that I knew that we were pretty solid, but I never intend that we're going to be like that tomorrow. I think it adds a lot of unnecessary pressure at times, but for me personally, I think it's really important. So.
Jason, thank you. I think you gave us all a lot of thought-provoking lessons, and we appreciate you coming here, sharing the BEX story, getting personal, sharing those things with us. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your sponsoring this so we can do it again and again every month. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any last bit of advice?
I wouldn't say that it's advice. I wanted to start with this, is that anything that I have to say, it's solely my own opinion. And that's based on research or, studying or just experiences, both good and bad, that I've had. So what I don't want you to do is, and not everybody has it figured out. For me to tell you, our situation, our financial situation in 2018, a lot of people will be like, what are you doing? But that's me. I don't ever want to be something that I'm not. And so everything that we discussed here today, those are my opinions. If there's something in there that helps, that you can take and learn from, or that might assist you in some way, shape, or form, awesome. I'm grateful to be able to offer that. But if there's something that doesn't, just let it go in one ear and out the other. I certainly won't take it personal. That's kind of the journey. But at the same time, I think a lot of these books and stuff that we read, they make it seem like, one more thing, is they also make it seem like you got to spend all the time in the office and you got to work all night, every night. I do think that's important. But I also think Tim Ferriss is doing amazing with his 4-Hour Workweek books as an author. And I don't think he's spending all night, every night in the office. I think, so again, you got to take the things that matter, that help. Go spend that time with your family. That's where I think that you should be spending your time and finding that balance. Because you don't want, we work from 8 o'clock to 3:30 at BEX. I wouldn't say that our people are the highest paid people in the world, but they're definitely not the lowest. And I take a lot of pride in that. And we get out, if there's a huge project at 3:30 that they're right in the middle of, and they're stoked to finish it because that's the mentality, the culture that we're trying to develop, I'll kick them out. Get out of here. Go spend time with your family. I want you to be stoked to get back at 8 a.m. I don't want you to spend 6, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30 at night, and then tomorrow you're dreading coming to the office, because this is a huge project. I want to nail this thing. I want to be high-fiving around the office. I don't want to be having to, go get 27 boxes of coffee and try and get everybody to bribe people to come into these meetings and nail this thing down. And so I think that that's a really important one, is you don't have to do that. You don't have to just wear yourself thin. I think that you will. I think that you will. If you're going to take this journey, you're naturally going to do this. But pace yourself if you can. But there's going to be a lot of times that you're just like, I got to do this. And that's cool too. We've all been there. So you're never going to skip the hard work. You're never going to skip it. It might happen at the very beginning of the business. It might happen somewhere in the middle, or it might happen at the end. But you're never going to be able to skip over that step of where it's really hard, down and dirty, roll up your sleeves work, whether that's digitally, physically, mentally, emotionally. You're going to go in. You're going to go through that you're not going to skip it. Especially if you want to be the type of company that you intend to be. You're going to have to pay those dues. So, thank you.
Jason, we appreciate it.